Hey everyone, this is Corey with Stafford's EDC, and today we're going to be taking a look at the GiantMouse Ace Tribeca. Now, in another video, the Catmull Knives Amused video, I called this the Atelier or the Atelier, however you say it. That's not correct. That knife is the mini version of the Grand, but this is the Tribeca. You can see here, made by GiantMouse, so it's obviously a Jesper Voxnäs and Jens Onso design. This is cool, something I didn't notice ahead of time, that this is in Magnacut. So interesting to see another company doing this, especially, I don't know for sure if this one is produced in Maniago in Italy, one of their factories, or if this one's being made by Rayot for GiantMouse. That's something I'm not sure of, and I don't know if their website's going to tell me. I have it open right here. With Italian passion, so it sounds like it's made in Italy. Yes, manufactured in Maniago, Italy, which doesn't surprise me given the way that this knife feels. We're going to get to that in a moment, but we'll go over this briefly. We have an anodized backspacer with this nice gold accent, black G10 wire clip, liner lock, CPM Magnacut. You can see this one's a little off center, meaning I probably have to tighten the pivot slightly. Flipper, opening hole, pretty typical to see from GiantMouse, not a uncommon combination of opening methods to see from them. So yeah, let's talk about this knife a little bit. This knife is actually on bearings, which I was not aware of as I'm reading the website here. I really thought that this was a phosphor bronze knife, and we'll talk about that now because the action on this is not what you'd expect for a bearing knife at all. You can see it drops to my thumb, but you gotta really shake it shut. Now, is this just one of the things with the Italian manufactured ones versus the Rayot manufactured ones? Maybe. The Ace Riv, which is significantly smaller than this, probably only about 3/4 of this size overall, had much better action, and that was made by Rayot, and that was a frame lock as well. So take that as you will, but this liner lock definitely feels a lot like phosphor bronze. And looking in there, I had thought you can see kind of the washer right there, and the one on this side. Now I'm seeing the thickness, and I could tell you that it's bearings. But originally, when I looked in there, I was like, oh, washers, because that makes sense, because of the way that this feels. The deployment can be very snappy if you do really get behind that flipper tab. You can hear how that fires out. The detent is good on this, by the way. There's no detent lash whatsoever. The flipper fires out, and you can see if you get low enough on that lock bar, it will drop to your thumb, but you still have to really shake it shut. And of course, the reverse flick fires out really nicely. But yeah, the action's kind of subpar on the close. The opening action's fantastic. The detent is great. The hole is positioned really well, and the flipper works fantastic. But yeah, I really thought this was on washers because that action is just not what you'd expect from bearings. And I've kind of had that experience with GiantMouse knives, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I don't like GiantMouse knives. It's not really anything particular that I dislike about them, but there's design choices that I don't necessarily agree with all the time. And everyone loves to say that, oh, Jesper Voxnäs is the king of ergos on small knives. And, this isn't a tiny knife by any means. I have a TRM Atom here, just for size comparison's sake. And the Atom has a 3.5-inch blade and a 4-inch handle, I believe. So you're looking at, 7.5 inches. This might be 8 inches overall. It's not significantly smaller. The Neutron might be a better size comparison, but I have a whole bunch of shit on top of my knife case right now. So I don't have a good way to compare those two at the moment, but it's not tiny. Certainly not a small knife. And the ergos look really good on this on paper. And then you get it in hand, and it feels really great just like this. The way that they want you to hold it. Thumb on the jimping, and your hand locked into it like this. And in this position, it's really comfortable. But then you kind of go to a hammer grip, and you start to feel that wire pocket clip. And then you have to maybe drop lower and you really feel that pocket clip. So it's one of those things that I find with my hand personally that Jesper Voxna's designs really force you to hold the knife in one particular way. And other than that, it can be comfortable, but it's not perfect. It's not necessarily designed to be comfortable in other positions. And I have the same exact problem with Spyderco. Spyderco's designs have good ergos if you hold it the way it's designed to be held. So that's kind of how this one is for me. So unless you're holding it exactly like this, kind of out in the fingers, so you're away from this pocket clip, which you can even see is still kind of digging in on me, it's just not super comfortable. And that's been my experience with every single GiantMouse knife I have handled. And that's just my experience. I also think they use too thick of a blade stock. This is 0.13 inches. It's hard to tell because they crown their spines, which is a nice touch. It's refreshing sometimes to have a nice crown spine versus something that's totally flat. That's something aesthetically that I can get behind, that I kind of like that they do that. It would be really neat to see some swedges worked in there too, like the Grand has, as well as the Atelier, however the hell you say it, the Mini Grand. That would be nice to see, but on this model, it's kept really simple, and this is more of a, I would say it's more of a budget piece because it's part of their Ace line, but it's not. This is $215. Now, you are getting Magnacut, but you're getting G10, kind of subpar bearing action. It's made in Italy versus some of their models that are made in Rayot, and I just don't find that the ergos work super well for people with larger hands. They work fine, but just don't hold it outside of the way it's designed. The cutting performance is always fine on these. They have a flat grind. They don't get particularly thin behind the edge. This one is no exception to that. It gets thin, but not very thin, so it cuts well, but it doesn't cut amazingly. There are certainly much slicier knives out there, even more slicey knives from GiantMouse. Oh boy, I'm going to butcher the name. I can't remember the name at all, this knife, but it is a very similar model. It has the hole, and it has the flipper on it, and I'm going to have to look at their website because I cannot remember, and it's going to drive me crazy if I can't find it. Oh boy, what's it called? I apologize, guys. Normally, the Biblio, that's the name. The Biblio is so much slicier because it has a much taller full flat grind, and I think some of them might have been hollow ground. And yeah, this just doesn't get the thinness behind the edge that the Biblio does. And the Biblio is super thick in hand with the contoured versions. And this one is a bit chunky as well. You can see kind of the thickness here. It is not super thin overall, which does help with the comfort in hand. That it's kind of a trade-off. Do you want slimness, or do you want to really fill the hand out? They don't have the handle thickness listed here, but I do have my calipers, which is nice, that I don't have to dig those out from my pile of junk. So we'll switch it to inches. We're zeroed out. At its thickest part, it's over half an inch thick at 0.54, including the widest part of the pocket clip. Talking about 0.8 inches. Yep, 0.8, 0.81 maybe. And then for you people who are metric, 20.5 millimeters where the pocket clip is, and outside of the pocket clip, talking about 13.5 mil, 13.7 millimeters for the thickness of the knife, which is chunky. In this day and age, we like a thin knife. They choose to use these thick contoured G10 scales, which again does make it feel nice in hand, but it's a 4-ounce knife. It just has no business being 4 ounces, and there are ways to avoid that, but it is what it is. There's no skeletonization in this. It's just GiantMouse's, that's their MO. It's a full steel liners with no weight reduction whatsoever, contoured thick handles, and fairly thick blade stock. It's just choices that I don't like so much, but it's the reality of a GiantMouse knife, and this one is right along lines with that. It's fine. It's not amazing. I won't throw this anyone's way as a recommendation. I think there are much better knives in the $200 range, but this is a good one. Overall, it's just not my cup of tea. There are things that I believe it could do better, Now, if you wanted to put the money into this to get it reground to be thinner, I think that would be fantastic. If you wanted to put skiff bearings in this, maybe lighten the lock bar pressure a little bit, accept a little bit less detent for better action, that would be really great, and this would become a much better knife that way. But those are things that you're not going to get from the factory, and you'd have to seek out on your own. So I'm going to leave you guys with that there. Let me know what you think about the Ace Tribeca if you have one. Maybe yours is better than this one, maybe it's not. Whatever the case may be, let me know your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.